My name is Rachel, and I never thought the worst day of my marriage would end with my ex-husband turning white as paper on our own front porch. It was a Thursday evening in late October. I was stirring spaghetti sauce on the stove when I heard tires crunch on the gravel driveway too fast, too sharp. I already knew that sound. 15 years of marriage teaches you the difference between someone coming home and someone coming to fight. I opened the door before he even knocked. Ryan stood there in his good jacket, the navy one he only wore to closings and client dinners. Next to him was a woman I recognized instantly from the pictures my sister-in-law had accidentally shown me. Younger, blonde, holding the hand of a small boy in a Spider-Man hoodie. The boy was maybe 4, chewing on the drawstring of his hood, staring past me into the house like he was trying to figure out if this was going to be his new living room. Rachel. Ryan's voice was flat, rehearsed. We need you and Caleb out by the end of the month. Melissa and Jonah need somewhere stable. This has gone on long enough. I looked at the little boy. He looked back at me with the kind of open curiosity only kids have. No idea he was standing in the middle of a war. Ryan, don't do this in front of him, I said quietly. I'm done being quiet, Rachel. I'm done paying for 2 households while you sit in my house like nothing happened. That's when Caleb, my 17-year-old, walked out from the kitchen still in his uniform from the auto shop, grease on his knuckles, phone in his back pocket. He looked at the woman, then the boy, then his father, and something in his face changed. The same look he'd had at 13 when the vet called to say our dog wasn't coming home from surgery. Dad, Caleb said slowly, you seriously don't know? Ryan blinked. No what? Caleb didn't answer. He turned and walked back into the house, and I heard him digging through the hall closet, past the winter coats, to the shelf where we kept the old fire safe. When he came back, he was holding a thick leather folder, the kind that looks like nothing until you open it. He held it out to his father like he was handing him a verdict. Ryan took it, annoyed, like this was one more delay standing between him and getting what he came for. He opened the cover, and I watched the color drain out of his face in real time. To understand that moment, you need to go back further because none of it makes sense without the whole picture. I'm 44. I grew up outside Columbus, Ohio, in a house my father built with his own 2 hands in 1985, on land that had been in our family for 3 generations. My dad was a carpenter by trade, the kind of man who measured twice and never once. When he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at 61, he didn't waste time being angry. He called his lawyer. I remember sitting at his kitchen table while he was hooked to an oxygen tank, going through papers with Walter Kim, the attorney who'd handled his business for 25 years. My dad wanted the house protected, not from me, he said, but from the future. From anything that might happen to a family after he wasn't around to watch over it. I wanted in a trust, he told Walter. For Rachel and Caleb. Not for anyone who marries in. Not for anyone who might marry out. I didn't argue. I signed what I was told to sign. Ryan signed a few papers too. A quitclaim deed, some acknowledgement forms. Mostly because he was more worried about missing a Bengals game that Sunday than reading legal documents. My father died that March. By June, the house belonged to the Whitfield Family Trust, with me as trustee and Caleb as the sole beneficiary. Ryan never brought it up again. Why would he? We kept living there. He mowed the lawn. He complained about the property taxes like they were his to complain about. For 15 years, he called it his house in every single argument we ever had. He never once understood what those 3 signatures had actually given away. The affair isn't really the point of this story, but I have to mention it because it's where the ending began. It went on for almost a year before I found out. A text that lit up on our shared tablet while Ryan was in the shower. Her name was Melissa, 30 years old. Worked in claims at the same agency as him. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I sat on the edge of our bed for maybe 10 minutes, and then I got up and finished making dinner, because Caleb had a chemistry test the next morning and needed food in his stomach before he studied. That probably tells you everything you need to know about how I handle pain. I don't explode. I go quiet and I keep moving. Ryan moved out 3 weeks later. He told his mother, his coworkers, anyone who'd listen that we'd grown apart. Nobody asked for my side. People rarely do when the man leaves calm and the woman just goes silent. For a while, life was almost peaceful. Caleb and I fell into a rhythm. His senior year college applications, bad reality TV on Sunday nights, so neither of us had to talk about the empty side of the garage. Ryan paid some bills late. He missed 2 of Caleb's baseball games. I filed for divorce in January, mostly out of exhaustion, mostly because Walter, the same lawyer who drafted my father's trust, told me it would be cleaner for everyone to just make it official. That's when I first heard about Jonah, Melissa's son. My sister-in-law told me over the phone, practically gift-wrapping it. He's sweet. About 4. Melissa's ex isn't really around. I said something neutral and hung up. It stung more than I expected. Some stranger's kid getting the bedtime stories that used to belong to my son. But it wasn't my business anymore. That's what I kept telling myself. Then 3 weeks ago the text started. We need to talk about the house. Melissa and Jonah need something stable. You and Caleb should start looking at apartments near the school. This is still half mine, Rachel, whether you like it or not. I forwarded every message to Walter. He read them and laughed, actually laughed. He can say whatever he wants. Doesn't change a single word on paper. I asked if I should just tell Ryan the truth outright and end it before it got ugly. Walter said something I've thought about every day since. People who assume things rarely go looking for proof they're wrong. Let him find out the hard way if he insists on pushing. I didn't love that advice at the time. I love it now. Which brings us back to that porch, that folder, and the sound of my ex-husband's confidence cracking in real time. Ryan turned the first page. Then the second. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, then just didn't. This says the house went into a trust in 2011. He said slowly, like the words themselves tasted wrong. You signed the quitclaim yourself, I said. At my father's kitchen table. I remember because you complained about missing a Bengals game. Nobody explained that to me. Walter explained it. You just didn't read it. He kept flipping pages and I watched 15 years of assumption collapse in under a minute. Every fight about his house. Every time he told his mother, he was letting me stay during the separation. Every text demanding Caleb and I clear out. None of it had ever been true. He'd signed away any claim to that property before Caleb was even in middle school, and then spent a decade and a half acting like a king in a castle that was never his. So I have nothing? His voice had gotten small. You have whatever's actually community property, I said. This house isn't it. Ask your own attorney if you don't believe mine. Melissa had gone very quiet beside him. I watched her do the math, the plan where she and Jonah moved into a paid-off house in a good school district, the plan where Caleb and I quietly disappeared into some apartment complex. I watched that plan fall apart behind her eyes. You knew, Ryan said, finally looking at me instead of the papers. This whole time you knew and you let me stand here. I didn't let you do anything, I said. You did this part all by yourself. Jonah tugged at Melissa's sleeve. Can we go now? In a minute, sweetheart, she said. And something about the tired gentleness in her voice made me feel an unexpected flicker of sympathy for her. She hadn't built this mess. She was just standing in the wreckage of it, holding a kid who wanted his dinner. Ryan closed the folder. This isn't over, he said, which is what people say when it's very much over, and they already know it. It's over enough, I said. Talk to Walter about the rest. I watched their car back out of the driveway. Melissa didn't look back. Jonah's face was in the rear window for just a second before they turned onto the main road. And something about it stayed with me longer than I expected. Caleb stood beside me on the porch. Neither of us said anything for a while. You okay? He finally asked. I don't know yet, I said. It was the most honest thing I'd said all day. The weeks after that were quieter than you'd expect, which I've learned is usually how these things really end, not with fireworks but with paperwork. Ryan's own attorney confirmed everything within days. The trust was airtight. My father's careful, boring, thorough planning left nothing to contest. Ryan's attempt to have the house factored into our divorce settlement got dropped before it ever reached a judge. He ended up owing more than he expected anyway. Not because of the house, but because Walter had quietly compiled a full record of missed child support payments and 2 months where Ryan let Caleb's health insurance lapse without telling me. All documented. All dates and numbers. No accusations needed. He never really apologized. Men like Ryan reframe instead. He told his mother the trust was some legal technicality and that I'd always been controlling about money, which almost made me laugh, considering I found out about my own house's ownership on the exact same day he did. But his mother called me a week later on her own and told me she was sorry, that she hadn't known the whole story, that she still wanted to see Caleb walk at graduation. I told her that was fine. Caleb never needed to punish anybody but the man who'd earned it. I heard, through the same sister-in-law who can never help herself, that Ryan and Melissa are renting a 2-bedroom near the interstate now. I don't feel much about that either way. I just feel like gravity finally did its job. Caleb graduates this spring. He got into Ohio State planning to study finance, which, considering he spent his senior year quietly building a legal case against his own father inside a hall closet, tracks perfectly. I asked him once why he never told me he'd kept that folder. I didn't want you carrying it unless you needed to, he said. I figured someday he'd push too hard and you'd need it. I didn't cry in front of him. I waited until he went up to his room. The house is still ours, mine and his, on paper, exactly the way my father wanted it 15 years ago, back when he was scared and running out of time and trying to protect 2 people he loved from a future he couldn't see. He never knew it would be his own son-in-law he was protecting us from. He just knew, the way careful people know things, that it was worth doing right. I used to think being careful and being scared were the same thing. I don't think that anymore. My father was careful. I was scared. And Caleb, it turns out, is something in between, patient, watchful, willing to sit on what he knows until the exact moment it matters. I sit on that porch most evenings now. Sometimes I think about Jonah, the little boy in the Spider-Man hoodie who just wanted to know if this was going to be his new house. No grudge, just a quiet hope that wherever he ends up, somebody builds something solid under him too, and tells him the truth about it, long before he ever has to find out standing on someone else's porch. The house is quiet these days. But it's mine. It always was. It just took my husband 15 years and 1 leather folder to finally understand that. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment sharing what you would have done in this situation. Your support helps us bring you more emotional stories like this.